Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It's another edition of our Bible study. This is Global Harvest UK, and we are so happy to see everyone in the room, everyone on the call at this time. Thank you for joining us. Let's just start with a short word of prayers. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together again to learn at your feet. Thank you for your word. Thank you because we know that wherever two or three are gathered in your name, you are with us. Thank you, Father, because we know you will teach us by yourself, even in this gathering tonight, in Jesus' name. Speak to our hearts. Give us insight into the things we need to know, even at this season of our lives, in our profession, in our careers, in our businesses, and in our ability to get well. Thank you, Father, because you will teach us by yourself. In Jesus' precious name, we have prayed. Amen. Good evening, everyone, once again. Thanks for joining us. This is Global Harvest Church, and it's our Bible study. We call it the Revealed Truth. And today we will be talking about HR matters, salary negotiation skills in the workplace. And we trust God that by the end of the session, you would have learned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 skills about how to negotiate, even beyond the workplace as well. Okay. Before we start, I'll just do a quick introduction of our speaker. She's Joy Adeyemi. We call her Lady Joy, LJ. She's our speaker for today. Permit me to just do a quick introduction in case you're wondering, why should I listen to, this speaker? I'll just do a very, very high level introduction of her profile. So Joy is an experienced senior HR professional with a background covering diverse industries. Having occupied several strategic HR positions on a global scale, she currently serves as the head of HR for a global organization in the United Kingdom. In her role, she manages the HR advisory function, overseeing a team of 18 individuals across the UK. Joy holds a deep passion for empowering individuals with the necessary skills to excel in the workplace. Additionally, she has a strong interest in innovation and its transformative impact on enhancing the employee experience at work. So why not Joy? I'll just encourage us to sit back, relax, as we introduce our speaker, Joy Adeyemi, to take us through some hidden things that I'm sure you're curious to know more about negotiating salaries in the workplace, whether you're at the interview stage or you're currently in unemployment. Welcome with me, our very own Lady Joy.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Joy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I was kind of listening to that and thinking, is that me? But yes, I'm learning to own my profile a lot more.
Yes.
One of the things that I guess you need. So no, thank you for that. And that's the nice part of kind of what I do. But something else that, we haven't put in there is just my experience around negotiation. So in my career to date, I've been made redundant 4 times.
Wow.
And the 4 times, some of them were through, organizational change going on. And some of it was just getting to a point where you have to sit down and have a conversation and agree that mutually an exit plan for both parties, myself and the organization, was the best outcome. And in all of those circumstances, negotiation was a very key fundamental part of those conversations to allow me live as, nicely and as professional as I can, but also live with really good compensation that I can point to, and things like that. So I think, that's something else worthy to know. And in changing roles, I have gone from having 100% increase, for roles. And that takes a lot of kind of faith and audacity. But yes, that is me. So, okay, great. So I have if any of you have attended any of kind of sessions with myself doing the presentation, I don't like to do presentations because I think sometimes it can be a bit distracting, and I kind of want people to focus more on sort of what the core of what we're talking about. No doubt a lot of people have got questions. So like I would always do, if you can forward this Zoom link to maybe 2 to 3 people and say, hey, there is somebody that is going to be telling you authentically how you can, ensure that you don't leave anything on the table, in the workplace or anywhere else in life, please do that quickly and then we'll start. Of course, this is sort of, you know, the revealed truth, and there is a spiritual underpinning to what we're talking about. And as I prepared for this, I was sort of thinking about negotiations that has happened in the Bible. And one of the worst negotiations, in my opinion, and I'll allow people to use the chat. From all of the stories that you know about the Bible, from your experience, who do you think had the worst negotiation for anything? I know, starting from Genesis to Revelation. Just put the name. Is it Mary? Is it Abraham, Moses? Who do you think? Who do you think negotiated the worst in the Bible? Or you think, really? Is that what all you could do? Let's use the chat. Okay. Right. Esau. Esau is for the win. Who else wants to go? Jacob. Yeah. Do you know what? You are all spot on, because I thought about Esau and I wondered, you know, how that poor negotiation on his part impacted him for years and years and years and years and years. And that's just to give an example of, even in the Bible, negotiation is a very powerful tool. We've seen people use that to get themselves into places of influence, you know, positions of influence. We've seen people negotiate, you know, covenants with God, you know, and all of that. So negotiation is a really, really powerful tool. Before we go into the questions, I just wanted to share some high-level information and just kind of give a bit of background. There was a survey done by salary.com, and it revealed that only about 37% of people negotiate their salaries. And what is even more shocking is that about only 70% of women attempt to negotiate their first salary, in comparison to 57%, you know, of men who do that. And you know, it's just such a very interesting, it's a very interesting piece of information, because sometimes you might think negotiation doesn't matter in the workplace, but it does matter, because another study by Stanford University, by a professor called, I think, Professor Margaret Neal, says if you get 100K salary and your coworker is able to negotiate just 70% and gets an additional 7K more, and assuming that you're treated the same way, same length of time and all of that, at the point, you know, you get the same pay rises and promotions, you would have to work, you who didn't negotiate would have to work 8 years longer to be as wealthy or as close, you know, in terms of wealth and retirement benefits to the person who negotiated. Now, that's just a very, you know, hopefully quick insight into it's more important, not just for now, but also later, because there is a compounding impact on having additional base salary, on having other things. And this research was only done on base salary. Now, you can imagine all the other things that people tend to negotiate on that gives them, you know, a lot of, a lot of advantages compared to people who choose not to negotiate. I've got some case studies that I'm going to talk about, but I wanted to talk about, you know, things like personalities in negotiations. So there are, or negotiation styles, if you like. There are there's a lot of, you know, styles depending on what you're sort of reading, but some of the ones that I have come across and I have personally adopted in negotiation is, you know, I'll share some of those with you. So the first one is a competitive style. So this is essentially I win, you lose. So it's people who pursue their own needs and give little to the others. So you go to an organization, you don't care about what they think, feel, you are just going there and you're saying, I am getting this, or, you know, nothing. Now, it's really, that is competitive style is very good. But it's important to know when to use it. And people that tend to use competitive styles are people who have an overwhelmingly clear advantage. So they are desperate for you. You know, you have some, you know, advantageous sort of mastery and all of that. Competitive style tends to work. Another style is the accommodating style. So it's around I lose and you win. Most people that I know tend to fall into this. You know, they just don't want to try. They're just saying, you know, the organization is saying this. In fact, I've seen people who the organization goes back to them and say, sorry, although we advertise the role at this level, actually we're no longer offering at that level. We're going to offer something below. And they just go, okay, you know, I'll kind of accept, you know, and all of that. And that again is not bad in itself. It just depends on the context. People tend to use that style when you find that you're in a weak position or don't have as much leverage, or maybe that's the only option that you have. There is also the avoiding style, which is I lose, you lose. They just don't want to bother, don't like conflict, kind of just passive. And they just say, you know what, I'm not just going to talk about this and all of that. So again, you know, it's important to kind of pay attention to, are you the one that sort of avoids, you don't want confrontation and all of that, avoiding style. And then there's a compromise style, which is I lose some or win some, you lose some, you win some. So it's around ensuring that there is kind of compromise. You're willing to give something as much as the organization or, you know, the person is willing to give, depending on the context. And, you know, you hopefully get what you want in a hopefully fair way. And then there is a collaborative style, which is I win, you win, and ensuring that you're both giving something that is of value to the other person, thinking about maybe longer term relationships, you know, those sorts of things. Okay. And it's important that, you know, you pay attention to, you know, you use this when, you know, kind of just being careful to ensure that there's no, you're not, you know, collaborating with somebody who, or an organization that maybe don't care about you, or a party that, you know, don't care about you and all of that. Now, there is no best style. It's all about what you personally feel comfortable with, your style and the context. And, you know, I think it's important to be flexible and agile in how you adopt the style. Sometimes I find myself personally starting very competitively to say, hey, I bring this to the table, and, you know, drop all of that. And as we progress, you know, with that negotiation, depending on what the context is, I see myself flexing my style. So having said all of that, what style, using the chat again, what style do you think you naturally tilt towards? Are you a competitive negotiator? Are you an accommodating negotiator? So competitive style means I win, you lose, you're going all out. Are you accommodating? So I lose, you win, you kind of just, I'll give them what they want. Are you an avoiding style negotiator, which is I lose, you lose? Are you a compromise type of negotiator where I win some, lose some, you win some, lose some, kind of give or take? Or are you a collaborative style where it's I win, you win, you know, kind of that, so ensuring sort of long-term relationship? Let's see in the chat what people, okay. So win-win, then competitive, good. Who else? Share. Oh, avoiding, okay, that's good. Thank you for being very honest. And like I said, there is no good or bad, it's just knowing, you know, when to use it and all of that. And I've got some notes which I would share. So again, I think I'm just wondering, Olaide, is there a way that we collect people's emails? We can share the kind of the notes with them. I'm more than happy to share.
Yeah, please feel free to drop your email addresses on the chat. We can take it from there. Yeah, just for today. Thank you.
Yeah. So a lot of people talking about, you know, collaborative, avoiding, yes. And, you know, the avoiding, like I said, you know, it's not bad. So let me just copy something into the chat so people can see. Avoiding is not bad. It's really about, you know, you just dislike conflict and all of that. And so sometimes people just think it's not worth my time. So again, there is no good or bad. It's around what you're comfortable with, but also ensuring that as you develop yourself, as you grow in leverage, as you build your confidence, you are exploring other terrains and all of that. So what I will do is I will stop there and allow, I guess, Olaide to ask some of the questions. I've got some other things that I will share, but I'm mindful not to load you up with too much notes, but we'll share as we go along and tie it in as we have conversation, and also looking at case studies. Okay.
Thank you so much, LJ. Thank you for those for that insight. I'll ask 2 questions, and if anyone has any question or whatever, please drop it on the chat group so that we can ask your questions immediately. So the first question I have here says, what research tools can I use to find out the typical salary range for my position and experience level? What research tools can I use to find out the typical salary range for my position and experience level?
Okay, so there's lots and lots of tools. So first of all, I would say from my experience, about 50% of organizations will share the salary ranges anyway. So if you go online, you typically tend to at least, 1 in 2 jobs they would share. They would share the range. And if they don't share the range, what the recruitment or the dashboards tend to do is to suggest a kind of range that is typical for that type of role. So you'd find if you're, for example, on Indeed, if you're using on Indeed, it will tell you, even if the salary is not advertised, it will say typical salaries for this role, and it will give a range, and it will give that range from different job board. I think it does a comparison of about 3. So you would find, a kind of range for the job anyway. So that's kind of one way. Another way to do that is to ask people that you may know that work in kind of similar role and all of that. There's also, I believe there's something called salary.com, and it does a huge benchmark of salaries for different types of roles and all of that. And I think there's others I would try to check and see. I can't recall some of them, now, but there's a lot of tools. There's read.com, and even LinkedIn would do some salary benchmark. One of the things that I would say is that organizations, even though they put a salary range, I think the only organization or one of the very few organizations that would share salary information to the T are places like the civil service, because they are a very reputable organization. One of the things that they pride themselves in is openness. And so they would share, the salary is £99,450, 76p to 100, they'll put the exact amount. So it's very open because they are part of the government. So that's one of the organizations I know. And typically non-governmental organizations tend to share the range. Most organizations that I know in the private sector would rarely give you the true max range. So there is organizations tend to, when they advertise role, they tend to share the salary somewhere around the middle. So organizations have the lowest band, the top band, they will typically share around the middle, and they aim to recruit between the lower and the mid band and not the top end. And that's because they want to allow people opportunity to grow into those higher salaries, because it's for people who are considered to be much more experienced. So the reason I'm saying all of that is because when you go into an organization, it's important that, or when you're looking for a role, yes, it's nice to have a kind of range, but also bear in mind that that's not the 100% that that is being communicated, because they need to leave some, something on the table just so that they can negotiate in case they find somebody that is really, really experienced. So don't be too bothered about that. Another thing is, for roles, it's important that you have your own desire as well. What are you looking to get, within the role? Yeah, so that's what I would say. So lots of information out there, but just know that it's not 100% accurate. So there's always scope to ask for more or to negotiate for something different.
Thank you so much, Lady Joy, for that. So we have salary.com, Indeed, read.com, and a whole lot of others. Let's feel free to check the tools to know, at least have an idea of what the salary range would be. The second question I have here is saying, I feel nervous about negotiating. What are some strategies to build my confidence before the talk, whether during the interview stage or as a current employee in an employment?
Yeah.
I take the question again.
If you could,
you want
please.
To take the question again? Okay. I'm feeling nervous about negotiating. What are some strategies to build my confidence before the talk?
Yeah. So one of the confidence is something that you build, and the easiest and tried and tested way to build confidence is to try. So one of the things to do in terms of feeling nervous is, one, understand and be very clear about your leverage. And by leverage, I mean the things that you have that you believe the other party needs. So be very clear. And one of the easiest ways, at the point you're negotiating, the reality is that you're the chosen one, right? For lack of words to use. So there's nothing to be worried about. They want you, You want them. We're now talking about next steps. So you've already won there. So take that win and build on it. The second thing that I would say is if you're feeling nervous and you don't want to talk, maybe it's a conversation, take time out and send an email. The thing about email is that, there is no facial expression, there is no, body language, nothing is purely, text, and there's lots and lots of tools you can use to enhance how you articulate your position or what you're trying to sell. So do that. Another thing that I have found to be very, very useful is to call a friend and say, you know what, can you help me type this? This is what I'm trying to do. And someone else, the fresh pair of eyes looks at it for you and is able to send it. But again, with salaries, just send it. Just ask. Because until you ask, you never know what's on the other side of the table. There are things that I've asked for that immediately I clicked that email. I just thought, shoot, Joy, what have you done? But the reality is that they came back and say, okay, let's talk. So I'll use this opportunity to give a quick kind of information. I recently helped somebody in the workplace. So I know we're talking about salaries, but there's other areas within the workplace that you can negotiate on. And this was a redundancy situation, and it's one of my case studies that I would share. And this person was placed on a performance improvement plan, and they had started that process. And towards the end of that performance improvement plan, she discovered, and that was when she gave me a call and said, look, the way this thing is going, I'm not feeling comfortable. And it's likely the last email I got from HR said, we're going to take you on a formal capability route, and one of the outcomes could be a summary dismissal, meaning dismissal with immediate effect, no benefit and all of that, because it's dismissal or termination due to capability, poor capability. And so she reached out to me and I said, well, and I encouraged her and kind of advised on the steps that she should take. And then we had given the organization 3 options. Remember, negotiation starts at that point. She says, these are my concerns around this performance improvement plan. I don't believe it was done well, and all of those sorts of things. And she gave them 3 options. The third option was she was open to an exit conversation under a settlement agreement. So what we would call protective conversation. And so anyway, she then engaged with it, and the organization, coincidentally, and to her surprise, not to my surprise, to her surprise, she says, oh, they went straight for option 3, and they had the conversation. And of course, the organization immediately offered her 6 weeks pay, and all of that, 6 weeks pay, And so she came back to me and said, oh, look, they've offered me this. I mean, it's better than being, summarily dismissed and all of that. I said, no, but you're going to have to go back and negotiate. Long story short, she was able to get an additional 4 weeks. And I remembered she was very worried sending that email saying, I declined the offer, I want more. And I said to her, don't worry, I'll type it for you. Don't bother reading it. I would just send it, or she would send it, of course, and that was what I did. So I just use that as an example to say, until you actually try that. And I saw this person go from somebody that was very, not timid, but very kind of just didn't want the conflict, was just happy to leave because it's been a stressful, maybe 6 months trying to go through a performance improvement plan, to somebody who felt, do you know what, I took my power back. And sometimes negotiation gives you your power back. Even if you don't get what you want, at least you're able to say what you want. And that in itself is very empowering for you. So I would say, definitely go for it. Just try it. Ask a friend, call a friend, but also always remember to have something that you're offering, because why should they want to give you more? Why would they want to give you more? Come with your leverage to say, look, I'm going to do this and all of that. And there's other techniques that I will share as we go along around some of the things you can do in case you don't get what you want. What is your fallback plan and all of that? I hope that helps.
Thank you, LJ. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. For some of us that are laid back, who want to talk, you can phone a friend, you can give it a shot, you can just try, just send that email, and you have a 50% chance of winning. I'll ask one more question. Please, everyone on the call, feel free to drop your questions on the chat so we can take them as well. The third question that I have here is, I love my job, but the salary offer is below my target. How can I highlight my value without seeming ungrateful?
Okay. That's fine. Well, it's a good thing that, the person loves their job. So, I would say one of the ways to do it is, first of all, the track record. So again, when we get to a point of negotiation in the workplace, so remember this time it's not a fresh job. You're already working in the organization. The first thing you want to check is the salary below your desire or within the organization's, I guess, scale? Because one of the constraints of negotiation, or what is, and like I always say to people, you can't negotiate everything. Some organizations are fixed. The max salary is 30K, that's it. There's nothing you do in the world. But there's other things that you can negotiate on. You can negotiate things like a bonus. If they offer bonuses, you can negotiate, holiday time. You can do a lot of other things, and all of that. So I think for me, in this particular case, I would say if there is a cycle of performance, management where they potentially offer bonus, that is the opportunity. The good thing with performance plan or process is that you have a while to kind of prepare for that. So you start preparing literally from day one, from how the objectives are set, ensuring that they are as smart as possible and they are within your control, with, of course, a bit of stretch to be able to deliver that. And you are documenting the evidences to validate the objective and how you're meeting those goals. So that's kind of step one, and be ready to, of course, sell that value to the business. So that's step one. If the person is on a low salary in comparison to other employees, you can raise that generally to the manager to say, I'm concerned because I'm doing work as, similar to my counterparts. However, you understand that they earn more than you. And you can raise that not as a grievance initially, but as a conversation with the manager. And, and again, you are exercising your right to fair work and fair pay, right? So that, again, is a legal thing that you need to do. You need to raise that. If you try all of this and it doesn't work and you're still not satisfied, even though you love your job, trust me, there's other organizations that are going to offer you the same level of exciting opportunity, if not more, for potentially double what you're earning. So again, another thing is finding the confidence to look for another opportunity, and display the level of mastery or experience or expertise you're giving to the same organization. So there's a famous saying that goes, you are not a tree, so you can move, So if one organization is not giving you, if you believe that they are not giving you a fair wage for the value that you're delivering, it's time to move. Because again, one of the things that I learned one of the things I know is there's worth and there's value, right? Worth is to you, value is to how the other person perceives your worth. If they don't perceive your worth, they tend to, associate lower value to that thing that you're bringing. So you need to assess this within the context of the organization you're working. And hey, if it's still not working, you've tried everything, performed greatly, it's time maybe to consider other opportunities. Okay.
Thank you so much, LJ. I mean, the summary of what I could pick from those 3 points were worth versus value. You must know what you're bringing to the table. That way, your confidence can be built. And, just said, so we must understand our worth and know the exact value so that we can negotiate rightly. I'll ask one more question, then allow you go back into what you wanted to share, the part B of what you have for us. So the next question says, is it okay to mention a competing offer during salary negotiations? If so, how should I handle it? So I got another offer, it's bigger than what I currently earn, so I want to bring it to the table so that they can, mark it up and use that to retain my job. How do I handle it if it's okay? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think that's okay. It's a leverage, right? Because it's an option. Someone else finds you attractive. They see kind of value and all of that. And people use it in different ways to get more, or just to even showcase that, hey, I want something somewhere and all of that. So I think it's not a bad thing again, but you have to be very sensitive and discerning as to when to bring that, because I've worked in organizations where people do that and they just go, whatever, see you later, So here's what I would say. The only time that you should be bringing that from your own end is when you genuinely want to stay in this organization and you believe that they need you, in fact, even more than you need them. So that's the time to use that. If you're not interested in staying in the current organization, there's no point. Tender your resignation and just, try and exit as much as possible. In some cases, once you do that, they try to stop it by offering you something without you asking. So here is how I would handle it. If you are confident of the value that you bring to the organization, tender your resignation and hope and pray that they say, hey, you can't leave. That's the best way, because what you don't want to do is to be cunning and to bring an offer and all of that. Because trust me, managers talk and they just go, if we offer this person now, tomorrow they come back, they would never be satisfied. You don't want to be seen as somebody that the only value that they place on you is to just give the person more money. So that's step one. But again, this is dependent on your confidence level in terms of the value that you bring to the business. If you just want to use it as a leverage for whatever reason, yeah, by all means, you can go to your manager. Now, the way I would do it is, look, I've just been offered this position. I really, really like this organization. But what is done for me is offering X 5 times more than I've been offered here. Whilst I'm not comfortable doing this, I just feel that it's a good offer for me to want to refuse. And I just wondered if there was an opportunity for us to discuss this and see how that goes. Most organizations, depending on the value again that person brings, would match it. Some people would even give more. I've seen it work both ways. But it all hinges on the criticality of your role in terms of how important they think it is and the value you bring. If those two things are missing, you don't have a leverage. You're just another person that's just brought in an offer and they'll be like, see you at your leaving do. So please make sure that you have good things that you're bringing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lady Joy. Again, your value, you must know it. You must know it. I mean, it must be relevant to what the employer also needs. I mean, that keeps repeating itself in everything you've been sharing. Is it okay? Anyone that has a question, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask. Please feel free to unmute your mic. It would be nice to hear from us. Anyone, please share your questions so we can address. Anyone? There are loads of questions, right? But please feel free. Anyone that wants to ask, or you can drop it in the chat. We'll pick it from there.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, my name is Esther. Thank you for this opportunity. Busola invited me. Thank you, Busola. So, excuse me. This training actually came at the right time. So, what if I have an interview and there's no salary attached to the job yet? So, I know they're going to ask me, how much do you think we should pay you? How do I answer that?
Okay.
Because there's no salary attached to that role when it was published. So I have no idea how much they're supposed to pay me.
Okay. So. Good, very, very good question. So one of the things I'll first of all say is never go into an interview without knowing how much, not what they're paying, what the role is worth, very broadly. There are some roles that it could be anything between 30 and 50. So first thing, what the role is likely to pay, broad brush type of figure. Another thing is to know the type of organization. That also plays a key part, because you can be doing exactly the same role in a not-for-profit organization that pays 25,000, and that same role in a financial service institution pays 50. So sometimes, and that's why we have to be careful about benchmark, because the size, the type, the sector really matters in determining salary, but it's good to have a broad range. So here is how to deal with that. Once you have an idea to say, okay, actually, it is between X and X, this is how you can, there's different ways you can answer it. First way you can answer, if you're very sure that this is the worth of the role, you can say, I believe that when they ask you, so Esther, tell me, what kind of salary are you looking at? Be very honest and say, I've done a bit of research, and from my research shows that for this role, it's likely, or it pays anything between, and give a range, because a range helps you somewhere. You're not selling too low, you're not selling too high. It makes you feel comfortable and all of that. And you say, I believe this role pays between 30,000 to 60,000, and that falls, I'll be more than happy to discuss once I'm offered the role within that range. So that's kind of step one that you do. Something else that other people do is, again, if you're confident of the information around the role and the salary, some people say, well, whilst I've done my research, I just wanted to be very open and honest to say my current salary is £55,000. And whilst I am very keen about joining this organization, I'm less keen about the salary, but I'll be happy to have a conversation closer to the time or at the point of offer around my salary range and other benefits that I receive within the business. So that's another step. If, depending on your style, if you don't have the information genuinely and you just can't figure it out, I'll be honest and say, oh, that was one of the questions that I had. I was actually going to ask you as the hiring manager about the salary range for this role. So you can put it back to them and just basically deflect and say, actually, it was one of the questions I have. Although I've done my research, I just don't want to put a figure here because I know that organizations are different. So I'll be more open. I'll be happy to hear from yourself what the salary ranges are. So that's kind of the different approaches you can use to deal with that. Was that helpful, Esther?
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question and the response. Any other person that has a question, just feel free to ask so that we can give the necessary responses. There. Any other person, please drop your questions in the chat as well.
Okay. So let me share something that is really, really interesting, and I call it the negotiation domains. So is how you make a determination whether to negotiate or not. So there was a United States Defense Secretary called Donald Rumsfeld, and he was answering a question on a news briefing. I'm reading from my slide, so don't get too impressed that Joy knows this information word for word. But anyway, on February 12, 2022, there was something around the lack of evidence linking the government of Iraq with the supply of weapons of mass destruction, to terrorist group and all of that. And this is what Rumsfeld stated. He said, reports that say that something hasn't happened are always interesting to me because, as we know, there are known knowns. So these are things that we know that we know. We also know that there are known unknowns. And this is to say we know there are some things that we do not know, but there are also unknown unknowns. These are the ones that we don't know that we don't know. And it says, if one looks throughout the history of our country, which is the United States, and other free countries, it is the latter category, which is the unknown unknowns, that tend to be difficult ones. So why did I share that interesting, story, which is a real one, by the way, is this is very likened, or it can be linked to negotiation and the terrain which you negotiate. The first one is the known knowns. So these are elements within an offer that we know that we know. Esther talks about base salary, for example. There's annual leave, there is potential bonus, there are pensions. These are things that we know. So we know that there's going to offer a base pay. We know we can negotiate straight up on those ones. Then we move to the other domain, which is known unknowns. These are elements within the offer that we may not, that we know we may not know. So for example, we may not know the extent to which the organization is willing to push the bounds to offer pay. We don't know how much bonus they offer. We know they offer bonus, but we don't know to what extent. We know that, in fact, we know that they may not even offer bonus, but it's a kind of benefit, right? And then the third one is the unknown unknowns. These are elements that we don't know, right? So I will share this on the chat so that if people wanted to kind of read through. But why is that important? That is important because you need to know the domain in which you are negotiating. So I'm going to give a quick case study. And I want you to use the chat and tell me, is it a known known or a known unknown, or is it a known unknown? So let me give you this quick, simple case study. And I'll put this in the chat because I want us to have a discussion about this. So Max received a significant overpayment in the form of a bonus amounting to £10,000, right? So he was paid over and above what his standard bonus was. Upon bringing this to the attention of the payroll team, he was promptly asked to repay the amount in accordance with the organization's policy, and he was asked to repay it immediately. However, Max explained that he had already spent the money and requested to negotiate a repayment plan. Initially, he was offered a 6-month repayment period. He deemed it unrealistic and negotiated for an additional 12 months, bringing it to a total of 18 months. And this was agreed. So based on that case study, do we think this was a known within the domains of a known, something that he knows the organization offered? Is it a known unknown, or is it unknown? What do we think? You could use the chat to do that. What domain do you think Max was negotiating on? Okay. I like a very engaging class, so.
So the case study is on the chat for those that want to read it again.
Case study is on the chat, yes, actually. Sorry, I should have said that. Okay. If people are trying to figure this one out, I would say this is a known unknown because, yes, fantastic, Busola, that's spot on. It's a known unknown. Yeah, I know I have to repay it. I know the organization says immediately, but to be fair, there's an unknown. But do they have a discretion to allow me to do it for longer and all of that? So when we think about that in the context of salary negotiation, that's how it works. There are things you know they offer. There are things that you can, the unknown is you push. I know they offer this, but I don't know the extent, so I'm going to push it. And again, that's why you build your confidence to say, I'm just going to ask, let me see if they are going to offer it to me. Anyway, I'll put another case study. So Con was offered a position at a large organization, but since he lived in Edinburgh, he would need to relocate to I put England there, but anyway, he would need to relocate to London. However, there was a minor complication. He had recently become engaged and was worried about his fiancé's job prospects. Surprisingly, Con took a bold step. After engaging in extensive negotiations, he requested that his fiancée be offered a position within the same organization before he accepted the role. Eventually, the request was granted and his fiancée secured a position within the organization. What domain do you think he was negotiating on? Is it a known unknown, or an unknown? Let's see. Fantastic. So Busola is going to get a prize because she's the most engaged. Fantastic. Happiness, yes. Fantastic. And yes, and you're all spot on. This is an unknown. And this is a real case. This is a real case for an organization that I worked for. And this person said, hey, all set to go. Guess what? I just got engaged and I need my fiancé to have a job before I move. Okay. And we said, well, let her look for a job. Okay, no. This is a very large organization and believe that you can find a job for her there. And everyone's run everywhere to go and look for a job. And guess what? We found a job for this person. I'd never seen that happen before in my life. I've not seen it happen again. But again, it exposes you to an unknown. You just don't know the bounds through which you can push negotiation. So you have to, I'm sharing this because you need to know that there are boundaries that you can push and it takes audacity. If you have the audacity to say, do you know what, I'm just going to ask for this. Because what's the worst that would happen? Truth is, we didn't even push to see whether he would refuse the offer or not. We had given that, but guess what? He had leverage. Remember, I talked about leverage. This person was coming to filling a very critical role. And so the business was in a desperate position. So of course, he adopted a very competitive, I am telling you what to do. I'm not wasting anybody's time. This is what I want or nothing. And the business played to that tune. So remember, there are domains in which you can negotiate. There are your known knowns. Yeah, I just want the salary, the basics, good, I'll take, you move on. That's absolutely fine. There is the known unknowns, things you know, but you don't know. The extent, most time that operates around the extent to which maybe salaries you can offer. Can you negotiate bonus? Can you move within the bounds of the standard operating process within that business or policy and procedure? And the unknown unknowns are just, do you know what? I actually want X and I'm going to ask for it, okay? Let me give one more case study before we then go into other questions. Let's see which one. Actually,
this says she must have been a superstar.
Yeah. It was, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the person was a superstar. Yeah, because, yeah. And again, that's the leverage they had. They're good. You want them. Why not? So let's look at another case study. So Jill had recently wrapped up a difficult exit discussion with an organization. Just before finalizing the settlement agreement, she requested to speak with the chief operating officer. During that conversation, she asked to retain her MacBook in addition to the terms already been offered to her. The request was granted. In which domain was this person negotiating, or in which domain was Jill negotiating? Let's see. Let's see the people that are paying attention in class today. What domain did we think Jill was operating from? No takers? Known but could, so known but could be known, okay. Known, unknown, so Busola says known, unknown. Yeah, known, unknown. Yeah, okay, known, unknown. All spot on, it was known, unknown. And guess what, people? That was actually myself. And I can proudly say that is the MacBook I'm using to join this call. So again, these are boundaries that you can push. You know, we'd finish having the conversation. Last minute, I say, hey, by the way, I can't even think of returning this MacBook. I love it so much. I'm already used to it. And I remember having the conversation, and the CEO didn't even blink. He just said, you know what, just have it. So you just never know the bounds that you can push. But again, it takes confidence and just going from a pure state of, you know, I would like this, and why not ask for it? So if you like it, why not ask for it? Why not go for it? Why not push? And guess what is the worst that can happen? Research shows that people don't negotiate for one. The top reason is because they're afraid. They're afraid of rejection. People are afraid of hearing no. But no is not a bad thing necessarily. No just means no, not that much, not now. You can reinterpret and redefine what no means. And if you redefine it, if it's not finite and it just means it's a journey, or no sometimes could be the start of a journey. No could be no, we're not offering. And what you do is take your time, retreat, and say, do you know what? I'm going to go back to your armory and think, what else do I have as a leverage? What do I know about the other person that I know that they'll be interested in knowing? What else haven't I shared? What else can I do? You know, and all of that. So great. Over to you, Olaide, for the question.
Thank you so much, LJ. We have about 11 more minutes, but before then, let me just take 2 more questions. Please, if you still have some time for the audience, feel free to share your questions. You can unmute and share or drop in the chat. But let me take one more from what I have here. So after you've negotiated and negotiation went well, and you receive a higher offer, what else should I do next? Like, how do I position myself? How do I convince my employer that it was worth the risk? So the negotiation went well, and I received a higher offer. What should I do next?
I think what you should do next is just go and deliver on the job. You know, I think that's it's kind of sort of a no-brainer on that one. If you've negotiated, so the things that you negotiated on to say, if you give me this, I'll do that. Go ahead and, you know, and deliver on the role. One of the other things that I would say is negotiation doesn't stop at the entry. So let me give you an example. Negotiation is really the start of a lot of things, because at this point you have said to the organization, hey, I'm all of this, I'm more, and you know, here you're going to have the best of me if you do this. And so they're giving you that. When you get into the organization, it's important that you deliver exceptionally well so that they can feel comfortable and they can feel that this was worth it. You know, it's like when you go to the shop and you pay a huge price for something, you want to make sure that it's worth it. You don't want to go and give kind of feedback and say it was just a waste of time. So we don't want that. So go in and do a really good job. Another thing I would say is that actually you can still renegotiate as you get into the organization in your performance review. So I know we're talking, today's session is focused more around how do I get in. The truth is there's other points within your career journey that you negotiate on. You negotiate, like I talked about, exits. You negotiate performance reviews. You negotiate, you know, one-off payments. You negotiate retention bonuses. Even when you're exiting an organization, there are times when people are leaving an organization and they'll say, you know what, I'm helping you deliver this project, I'll do that. Actually, let me give an example. I had worked for a renewable energy organization about 6-7 years ago, and I had worked less than 2 years. And I remember I was on holiday with my kids in Edinburgh, and my manager sent me a message and said, "Jo, I need to speak to you the next day," which was a Monday because I was back on the Sunday. Went to that conversation, and it was the director of HR at the time. And he said, "I know you're leading the global HR strategy and projects team. Unfortunately, I can't," these were his exact word, "I can't justify your role in the new world." So the organization was going through a massive change. And my role and my team, and we're 3 of us at the time, he said he couldn't justify the role in the new world. And it made sense to me. He says, "But I need you to deliver the project, and I would make you a good offer." And I got an exit offer that was a really good package, even though I wasn't entitled to it based on my years of service. So of course, I didn't have to do too much negotiation, but I'm just saying there are bounds to which, you can do that. If you're delivering a project and you're going to take the organization to a new phase, you can negotiate a retention bonus to say, "I want to do this, but I want to do it engaged." So let's discuss an offer. There's multiple things you can do. Sometimes even when you hear a no, remember I said no is not finite. No could mean, okay, even if I don't get the money that I want at the point of entry, can we revisit this conversation in 6 months' time? And all of that. So then you are motivated to deliver exceptionally well because you're going to open up the negotiation again in 6 months' time. And it's important to get that in writing. Even if they don't write you, you write them to say, further to our conversation today, we agreed that if I delivered X, Y, Z, my salary would be reviewed by month 6. I'm super excited to join the organization because you want things documented. Otherwise, you have just spoken to the air and the birds will go away with those words and it would never, surface again. I hope that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lady Joy. I think PB's hand was raised.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, I have 3 questions. I couldn't wait to ask the questions. So help me here.
Yeah.
The first one is one of the things that stopped me from negotiating, not me really, because I always try to ask for everything, but that I think stop people from asking for money is the fear of what management or HR thinks. Can you talk us through when we come to you people and ask for, and I'm saying you as in you guys are the enemies, the other side, HR and management, what's your mindset like? Now, so that you can dedicate the right time to the number of questions, let me ask my other 2 questions. You can answer them once and for all. So that's the first one, mindset of HR and management. When anybody comes to ask for, do you look at us as bad? That's the first one. Number 2 is when I'm trying to justify, you said to justify why I'm asking for more money. What are the good reasons I should be thinking about? Because I get blank. Some of us are avoidance. We don't just want to talk about it. Number 3, how regularly should I be asking for a raise? I've been on this job for 20 years. I've only been raised once. How regularly do you think I can ask for a raise? And those are the 3 combined things. What do you think when I ask for a raise? How do I justify it? What are the points you recommend that will encourage you if I come to you to listen to me? And number 3, how regularly? Thank you so much. But it's been a very good session. Thank you so much.
Okay, fantastic question. So mindset of HR and management is very different. HR would always want to save money. The manager just wants to pay because they are desperate for the role and they see the value because it is their role. So this is what I would say. HR is always going to do what is good for the business. So HR would always defer to the business, but HR always checks to say, are you sure you're doing the right thing? Remember other people that are doing the role. We're kind of the stewards, if you like, of equity and equality, fairness, that type of thing. So if somebody is coming and other people are earning 100K and somebody is suddenly asking for 150K, we immediately get worried because you're disrupting the equity of that team. So that's HR's job. But then what HR would also do is to see how to make that work. So we go back with a counteroffer and say, how about we give you 110,000 and then the remaining 40,000, we do it as a retention one-off bonus. If you stay with us for 2 years, we'll give you 20K. If you stay with us an additional 2 years, we'll give you. So HR does all of those kind of work behind the scenes so that it doesn't come to the person's base salary. What I'm just saying is that HR works as a partner to the business to make that work. In terms of the mindset is, as long as you have the leverage, which is your second question, to be honest, managers are very open to negotiate anything. Like I say, you'll be shocked how much is in the bank for a certain role, depending on the experience. And that's why it's important to come with your leverage. Basic leverage would be things like, this is a very challenging role. I'm going to be managing. So look at the context of the role, because when we do job evaluation, those are some of the things we think about. What is the size of the role? I'm going to be managing a global team. I know how challenging that is. I've done it in my previous organization. I believe that a fair rate for this job would be X. That's kind of one you use. Another thing is a skill that you bring that the organization desperately needs, whatever that is, that you have, maybe a lot of people don't have. Or I've got project management skills, but also I have got project management in tech, and it's so unique. It's a big thing. Show a research, whatever it is, add that on as a skill. And sometimes it's just kind of your soft skill. I think that's what you do. Another thing you can do as well is you can lump up your other benefits that this organization is not giving. So for example, if you have a car allowance or you have a company car, you can say, thank you so much for the offer. However, I haven't checked my total reward package. I just realized that I'll be short by X because I get a car allowance, and I'll be happy if that is embedded within the base pay, even though I know your organization doesn't offer it. Sometimes they'll come up with a story. Okay, we won't give you as a car allowance, we will give you as something else. HR always works with the business to make that work. So those are things that you do. Your leverage is really, really important. In terms of mindset, trust me, nobody is feeling bad. I personally, as a HR professional, get excited when people are negotiating. I love it because there is always extra on the table. And I've seen money left on the table 1,000,001 times that I feel like I should go behind the scenes and say, come on, go and ask for more. But professionally and ethically, I can't do that. But trust me, people are not feeling awkward about that. People are happy for you to do that. And then how regularly should you be asking for pay rise? I think it's a question that depends on context. Sometimes some organizations have periods, so it's maybe twice a year or once a year at the end of performance review. If there is a general organizational kind of calendar, I would say align to those, but use that opportunity to ask for more beyond. Again, managers always have. Organizations could say, if you meet your target, you get 10% pay rise. But the reality is there is always more, and they can say discretionary managers can give 20%. And I've seen that happen 1,000,001 times. Some managers are bold enough to use it. Some employees ask for it, some don't. And so the money stays there in the pocket, it gets recycled. So ask and use that opportunity to say, I've delivered exceptional value. I did this, and this. I believe that I should get this and all of that. And again, one of the things that I've found in the workplace, having been in different rooms, there are two factors that enable employees to get good pay rise. One, the employees themselves being self-advocating, so fighting for themselves, ensuring that they are documenting their progress and they have clear evidence on how their performance is delivering value to the business, both quantitatively and qualitatively. You need to be able to articulate those. But the second thing, and very, very powerful as well, is when you are not in the room and the manager is in the room, you need to have a strong manager that advocates for you. One of the things that enables manager to advocate for you is if you help the manager present your case well. So go to your manager with notes and say, hey, I know you're going to the talent meeting today. I just wanted to help you by articulating some of the things I've done. Very three points. I delivered this increase by 30%, all of those sorts of things. It's important that you do it. So a manager that is very strong to advocate, but even if they are not, help them by giving them a presentation or some information that enables them advocate on your behalf. So those are the things. And then another thing I would say in terms of how frequently do you want to do it, I would say as frequently as you need to. So if you have, for example, evidence to show that you are on a lower pay compared to your counterparts or your colleagues, it's important that you flag that to say, hey, I've just noticed, or I heard this person, or whatever, people are on higher pay, and I'll do that. Some people feel awkward because they just think, oh, you shouldn't be saying that. Who is telling you your salary? Well, tough. We see that all the time. HR gets upset and say, who is talking to people about salaries? But the reality is you can ask for that, and you can do it in a subtle way to say, I believe that, I understand that I heard some people having a conversation and they seem to be on higher pay than me. I believe I do equal work, if not more. Use that opportunity again to sell yourself. I know it sounds very exhausting, but it's always important to be able to share your value to the business. And I know we're talking about negotiation today. Can I just talk very generically? about some of my experience of people not advocating for themselves. I used to be one of those people that, don't worry, you will see me and you would recognize that I'm doing a good job. The reality is nobody sees you and nobody cares whether you're doing a good job. Your manager doesn't go home thinking and dreaming about you and how they are going to make your life better. So it's important that you become a self-advocate. You showcase your work. You know, you do projects in a very, I guess, in a very exceptional way, you know, learn different skills that enable you to carry out the same task in a better, more efficient, effective way so that you have something to sell. I'll give you an example. I have skills in project management, but also things like design thinking. So when there was a time in our organization, they needed a policy to be rolled out. This policy had been, you know, this idea has dated back 2023, March. That was the first email. Everybody kept dodging and all of that. In November last year, I picked it up and I said, actually, I'm going to run this as a mini project and I'm going to deliver it. I got a project team together, called it a name, spoke to one of the chief HR directors, and I said, hey, I want you to be a sponsor. This is a really important project. Got my team together, did cycles within 5 weeks, you know, delivered that project, and we got a sign off early, you know, this week due to, you know, there were but one of the things that he said to me was, Joy, this is the first time that we are doing a project this robustly. He says, I'm really impressed that you engage different stakeholders externally, internally. We carried out tests and all of those sorts of things. So whilst I was delivering a document, I did it in a different way, and that was seen as value. And I got lots and lots of positive feedback about how that went. So it's important that even when you're doing basic tasks, you do it in a way that is seen to be efficient, is saving costs. Things organizations like cost savings, is simple, is effective, it delivers value, it gives us money, it saves us money, it saves us time. Those sorts of factors are very attractive to an organization. And if you're going to operate in these domains, it's really, 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 really good. Pastor Bai, I hope that was helpful. Did that answer your questions?
Thank you so much, LJ. We can't exhaust it, obviously. There's one last question I would like us to take. Is in the chat room. It says, how likely is it for an offer to be withdrawn because I'm trying to negotiate better pay?
Oh, it's
withdraw my current offer? Yeah.
Yes. So that happens not a lot, but it does happen. So this is where that skill, so in negotiating, it's important to know when to stop. At what point do I say this? So it's good to have your non-negotiables and your, actually, I can do away with this. So always come with your, I want 80,000. So the job is offered you 75. I want 80K. If they say they would only give 79, I'm happy to take that. So always have the one that you're willing to say no, and be willing to move on as well if you're asking for something you believe you deserve and they're not giving you. But I have seen cases where actually they're just going to withdraw the offer. One of the things that I would say, people HR would rarely come to you and say, we're withdrawing the offer because you're asking for too much. They don't tell you that, but that's the truth. They would say something like, oh, unfortunately, the role is now on hold. It's not on hold. It's just because they are perceived as somebody that is just going to, you know, stress the organization with that. So this is what I would say. It's good to have a good balance. There is a rule of thumb that says when you're asking for pay, you're asking for between 7 to 15% of what is being offered. That's the first part. And the second thing is, it's good to be very creative to help the organization think about other ways that they can offer you. I've seen people do things like, okay, well, even if you're not offering this, how about a bonus at the end of that project? That tends to work a lot when there is a finite project or something quite tangible that would happen within a period, because then both you and the organization can see, oh, we have delivered this milestone. And so you can tie an amount to that. So even though they're not offering you base, you know, they can offer it in terms of bonus. So I'm just knowing kind of when to stop. And then there are sometimes actually you sort of know when to stop, you know, negotiating. And you would have that sense as you go along, you know, they would come back. Some organizations will come back and say, so this is some of the tests. If they're offering 80,000 pounds as an example, and you're asking for 100,000, some organizations will say, well, the max we can give you is 90. You know, at that point, you know, you're getting more than 10% of sort of what you're looking for. You may say, yeah, that's a fair price, I'll leave it. And then you could then say, that's good. You know, what are the scope for me to increase or to get salary increase over the next period of time? Some organizations will tell you ahead of time. If they don't, it's always important to kind of ask just to know, is there going to be reviews and all of that? But, you know, there's no rule, there's just a sense. You know, if you're sitting on a negotiation table, there's time, you know, do you know what? I've pushed it now, just stop. And all of that. So you always have that sense. And you, again, it's based on how desperate they are. If they're really desperate to have you gain your leverage, you can push as much as you want. If they're not, yeah, if it's a role that is very unique, there are not a lot of people like that in the world. Of course, you can be more, you know, competitive in your negotiation style. Whereas if it's a role where there's tons and tons of you, you're probably the best candidate by 1%, you sort of want to just go, do you know what, I'll just accept this. What you can then do is negotiate on other things, flexible working, you know, additional annual leave, all of those sorts of things. And I want to say lastly, that it's important to factor a lot of things beyond base pay. Some organizations may pay a lower base, but they give you other things that are valuable to you, like good annual leave, fantastic pension, all of those things count. So let's not focus too much on how I get into the organization, but it's what are the other things that they are offering you. So look at the total reward package rather than just the base pay.
Thank you so much, LJ. Thank you so much. Again, we can't exhaust this. I mean, the response to that question, the chances are slim. So it's better to negotiate than to just be afraid of having your offer withdrawn, you know. Thank you so much, Lady Joy. It's always a pleasure to have you speak. This is part 1. Everyone, there's part 2 next week. Please feel free, tell someone to join as well. We'll continue the same topic next week because we've not exhausted everything we have. And we'll be happy to have Lady Joy again with us next week. This is Global Harvest Church, United Kingdom. Continue same time next week. Also, feel free to join us on Sundays on our Zoom and our YouTube channel, Global Harvest United Kingdom. We also have our Bible community, 6 a.m. to 6:30 United Kingdom time, Mondays to Fridays. Then from 6:30 to 7 o'clock, we also have our Since the Day, where we pray for 30 minutes. And that's on Saturday with those 2 sessions. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Lady Joy. We'll see you again next week. Please, everyone, thank you for joining. Join us again next week. This has not ended. There's part 2 of it coming up next week as well. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you. Sorry, we were run by